is very important because in one way or other we are always related with that. This is the thing if we understood in our career, this is the thing if we understood the importance of it, this is the thing if we understood the framework behind it, I can bet on that there's a lot of things we can started doing and started implementing in a better way. So today's subject, which I have which is very closer to my heart, and this is a subject I've worked almost around, you can say 7-8 years onto it, especially when I've been in ADNOC as well. At that time, the first time when this subject has been floated in, I was lucky to be a part of the core team, and then later there was a lot of work has been done in ADNOC HQ, and I was being invited over there to work onto this process. And this subject, I think you are already been much familiar with the title of it. Today, inshallah, we are going to talk about this subject is about the competencies framework. This is a very important subject, especially from a strategic point of view for any organization. The question is what competency is all about, why it's very much essential for the organization's survival. What are the core reasons? When there was a survey has been happened with some of the high performing organization, they identified that the organization which are having a very solid foundation of these competencies, identification and facilitating their process, they are always being going super duper in their achievements of some of the corporate objectives. So that is today's our subject that we are going to talk about that. I remember one of the story I think I might have shared earlier, but I would like to reflect that it has such a profound meaning into it. Many of the years back when I was being in the technical training center, and I remember that's a subject of competence. I have such a number of students which are being a part of this training center. And one of the day I came across a challenge when one of the students was so notorious, so mischievous, such a naughty guy, and he was not paying any attention to that. And one day, some of my trainers, they came to me and they said, Kamran, you have to talk to this boy. We are having a real tough time with him. So I said, all right, let's bring him in. And when he came in front of me and we had a bit of chat, and I asked a question, he was expecting that might be I am going to reprimand him for something, but I changed the whole questions in a different paradigm. And I asked a question. I said, I need some favor from you. And he was shocked. And he thought might be I'm going to, being as a manager, has to say something to him, but or to penalize him for, because he had already heard that his misconduct has been communicated to me. But I said, all right, Muhammad, I had a question. Can you support me one thing? And he said, yes, sir, I'm going to support you with that. What is that? I said, can you hire one driver at your home on my recommendation? And he surprised and he said, all right, if you want me, I can do it. Then I said, but Muhammad, there is a challenge with that driver. This driver did not have any driving license. Did not having any driving license. And he was a little bit confused. He said, what do you mean by that? He didn't have a driving license. And you asked me to hire him as a driver. I said, no worries, no worries. He's going to learn on your car. And I know that you are so generous, you are going to give him a car and he is going to learn on it. Then he replied to me, he said, sir, I have some concern. You are asking me to hire a driver without any sort of a driving license and to give him my car while my family is inside the car. Are you insane? Do you think I'm going to take a risk on that person, sir? And the moment he told me, he said, why should I take a risk on that person? That moment I reversed a question to him and I said, Muhammad, you are absolutely right. You are concerned about your 200, 300,000 dirham car, having your family inside, and you are not ready to take a risk on a person who is incompetent, who don't know how to drive a car. And my question to you, do you want us as a company, a $1 billion company, with the thousands of people working inside, to take a risk onto you when you are incompetent? I think that was a very profound lesson which has been passed to him. And I'm so happy that he has changed his manner. Now, this is a question of competence. My point of view over here is, with the gist of so many of the things that I've seen, it is not the failure of the companies, it's the failure of the competencies. Sometimes we have to identify what competency is being required for the people to perform their job. One of the interesting scenario what I would like to share with you, and it is not specific to ADNOC, actually before that when I was doing my assessment across different organizations, there was one of the interesting study I have conducted, and that interesting study was that in many of the instances when the technical people who are so much good technical, they are good engineers, when they are being promoted to the managerial position, they happen to be the biggest, what you can say, blunders that started happening. And the management is really surprised what happened to these good guys that we known to them for years, and they are having an amazing technical acumen and they have been doing an amazing job. The moment we make them as their team leaders or managers, the thing started falling apart. What was the reason? And I tell you, my dear friends, and you might have sensed that part, the question whenever some of the people, they go to the higher level, you know what is the shift has been happened? The main shift has been happened that the competencies which is being required at the engineer level is not the same when you are being promoted as a manager. It requires a different set of competencies. And the problem happened with the people, they try to operate with the same mindset, same set of competencies at the higher level, and that is the problem which has been happened. So if I give you a sort of an idea that if you are a technical person, you know how much, if I make it just for a generic purpose, if I say there are two set of competencies, main competencies, one is a technical set of competencies, second is a leadership set of competencies. Now, if I ask you this question, when you are a technical person, when you are a technician, when you are an engineer, how much percentage of the technical competencies you require? And you say, all right, Kamran, if you talk about that, we require 70%, we require 80% of it. All right, fantastic. How much of the leadership competence is required? Still required, but how much? Proportionally much less, maybe 30%, maybe 20%, maybe 40%. Now, if I ask you a question, today if you are being promoted as a manager, if you have been asked, all right, now you are being promoted as a manager, what percentage of leadership competencies are being required to be more deployed in your role? Is it 20%, 30%, 80%? Or it is less than that? Now, question is, answer is very simple, that as we get to the high level, we require more different set of competencies in order to do that job in an excellent way. So generally speaking, when you shift your role as a management cadre, you require more percentage of your leadership competencies, your management competencies, and lesser amount of your technical competencies. That is a point when the people do not change that mindset, they had a bigger issues happen. That's why I always highlight to my colleagues in my surrounding and to myself, I always say, in order to go up in the ladder, you have to give up something over here. So some of the things which we have been comfortable with doing, if we have been promoted to the higher level, we require a different set of competencies. I hope it sounds sense to you, right? So the point what we are talking about, the competencies are very important. Now let's look into another. This is level 1. What is unconscious incompetence? For example, in any area of knowledge, in any area of expertise, we always start with the level 1. Even if you remember that any of the degree which you have gone through in your college or in your school or universities, which level we always start with? Unconscious incompetence. So for example, even if competency is a new subject for some of us, where we are starting unconscious incompetence, we are unconscious, we are not being aware of what we do not know, what we are incompetent of. So any of the training course, for example, you have been joining in, what is the level you always start with? Unconscious, you are not being aware of what you do not know. So level 1 is always in the competency, start with unconscious incompetence. What is the level number 2? Level number 2 always come with that when you have gone through some sort of intervention, like you have attended some of the training course, you have attended some of the e-learning, you have got some sort of coaching or mentoring or something, you go to the next level, which is called a conscious incompetence. You go to the next level, which is called a conscious incompetence. So what is the maximum ground you can cover whenever you have been going through some sort of a learning intervention? It is from unconscious to a conscious one. So for example, if I take all of you might have an experience of driving a car. My question is, the first time when you didn't know how to drive a car, which level you have been in, you are unconscious and you are incompetent. You didn't know how to drive a car, you didn't know what you need to know, and you have been there. Now you started getting some lesson about how to drive a car. You get to know some fundamental, and you get to know about some of the things. This is gear, this is brake, this is accelerator, etc., etc. What exactly is the level, and these are the road signs, etc. What ground you cover to the next level. You become conscious about some of the things which you are not been aware of, but still you fall into the category of incompetence. All right. So these are the second level of competence. Now, what is the third level of competence? Third level of competence we have to talk about is that when you are being started applying some of the knowledge which you have got over here, you get into the third level. It is called a conscious competence. Now, here your competence started happening. Till 2 levels, you are not competent. You are still incompetent. But when you started applying that knowledge practically, you get into the third level, which is called a conscious competence. So you have been aware of, for example, now you have got so many lessons how to drive a car. You have also got some sort of experience over there. You remember that even people, when they get a driving license, they have been very conscious while they are driving a car. They are looking into the back mirror, side mirror. They are actually looking for the gears and the brakes and the pedals. So what they have been doing, they are actually started applying the knowledge which they are getting. And the more knowledge they get, the more number of time they have spent on this level, they ultimately go to the last level, which is very important level, which is called a level 4, and it is called unconscious competence. It is unconscious competence. And this unconscious competence, my dear friends, is a mastery level. You get a mastery of any subject, of anything, if you have been operating on that level. And before these levels, these are the successive levels in which you actually can grow through that. So the most important part what we have to understood in a competency process, and I'm going to relate, at the next session we are going to talk about, if these are the 4 levels in which anyone can grow through it, what exactly it can be superimposed into our competency framework model, how the competency models are being established, what are the different successive criteria in which people mobilize into the next level, what are the things in which we can actually implement that. And maybe you have been heard about number of times the philosophy of 70-20-10. Inshallah, we are going to cover next time onto this philosophy, what exactly is 70-20-10, how it can relate to that. And the most important part is that once you are going to go through it, I'm being confident that from here onward, if somebody can talk about the word competency, you know the crux of the matter. You know what exactly this subject is of more important, and you know being able to look into your job profile and look into those competencies, and you have been able to understand and comprehend. That was the thing which inshallah we are going to focus on as a part 2 into our next session. So up till now, let's quickly conclude what we have covered. Today we have talked about what the competency is all about, and competency in a general definition they talk about it is your awareness, knowledge, and your attitude. And I always say with the attitude, which is very, very, very important, that our attitude in our life that define the altitude of my life. So what attitude I carry as a professional, it define my altitude in life. What attitude I carry as a person, it define my altitude as a person. So your attitude in life define your altitude in your life. So you sound positive about it, irrespective of the scenarios which are being challenging all across. What exactly is the philosophy you carried with yourself? What exactly is the thought process you carry with yourself? What exactly is the choices you have been making right now? What are the things you have been able to focus on? It has been the thing of a sense of contribution, or you have opted to live as a life of a victor, or you have opted to live a life as a victim. It's all the question of your attitude in our life. So the most important thing for us as a professional has to understand the mechanism of this competency modeling for us, so that whenever we are progressing in our career, we have to look into that if we have been promoted to the next level, what set of competencies I have to be flourished more into my career? What exactly is the expectation from the organization that I have to nourish myself? And the most important part, my dear friend, this is most important what I have talked about, that that I have referred one thing, and that is my strong recommendation. We have a shorter time in this world, and we have a shorter career as well. It's 20, 30 years, not a big call in time. What is most important, I recommend, is that you identify at least one area of your professional life, one thing which is more closer to your heart, which vibrate very closer. And I would say it's always good, rather than you know a little things about so many things, it's always good that you know all the things about one thing in your life. And if you have a knowledge about the one thing which you are passionate about, I would say you had a separate place. You have been differentiated from the crowd. You have been the one always been required on that set of competencies, because the world acknowledge the mastery of the people. So what area of mastery you have identified for yourself to be flourished in the many years to come?